Well guys, I'm back to normal schedule and it's time for a video. In January I covered 2 video game videos, with one being the reveal of Nintendo Switch 2. Then in February I covered a pretty long video of a TV show, and for this month, March, I feel like I should do a movie review. And I got the one I wanted for this one, Inside Out 2. I covered Inside Out in previous videos, and I did trailers on the sequel a couple of times, but now it's finally time for a movie review. And after the review, I'll discuss which Inside Out movie I like more. So, let's begin. Since it's a sequel, it continues right when the first one left off. Riley is growing up, becoming a teenager now, and inside her emotions comes all new emotions, with the biggest one being anxiety. Anxiety comes at both the perfect and worst moment as Riley is trying to get into the hockey team. This creates a lot of stress, difficult choices, and inner turmoil, literally. And with Joy and the others getting separated, it's up to them to get back to the control panel and stop anxiety in charge of Riley's mind. So before I get to the review, I should talk about the announcement of the movie. So when the first Inside Out movie did great, people were skeptical of a sequel, myself included. Pixar movies do have sequels even after the first Inside Out came out. So I was like, yeah, make Inside Out 2. It could definitely work. You can make Riley grow up, bring in new emotions, and all that stuff. Thankfully, Pixar confirmed, and I was excited for a sequel. I didn't watch it until it was on Disney+, and yeah, this is definitely a really good flick. Even though it's not a year old just yet, I'll try not to spoil the whole movie for those that haven't seen it, because honestly, it's a fantastic movie. I'm actually really happy for a Disney and a Pixar movie to get a sequel, and this is the one where they basically did great all the way. Plus, this is going in the right direction, focusing on character and innovation, not having it playing too safe and familiar. Though people have complained one moment in the movie, but it didn't bother me, which I'll get to that later. When I read the plot and seeing the trailer, this is what I imagined in a sequel. Riley grows up, check. New emotions being added, check. The main emotions that you remember in the first movie get separated, check. And situations causes havoc, check. Honestly, they basically got it right all throughout the movie. While Pete Docter didn't direct the second movie, he basically was the executive producer and consultant, and I do congratulate him for doing that. Anyways, let's get back to the movie. The story doesn't feel like a retread. It's basically the new characters take over and the old characters have to return, in which I like those. The animation is still very good. In fact, the only thing I noticed from the change is the shading and the lighting. When the emotions are in, it looks colorful throughout it, but when it's the humans, I noticed the changes on the animation, in which they did a great job on using lighting and shading. Let's get to the characters, which is honestly one of the best parts about the movie. Joy, sadness, anger, disgust, and fear, in which we all know about them in the first one, but they improve more. In the first movie, joy and sadness were the mains, while anger, disgust, and fear control the panel. But in this, all 5 were the highlights, while the new characters control the panel. Though sadness heads back to the panel early and not distract anxiety. Although sadness appeared less, I really like that she and Joy legit get along and going to the belief system. And yeah, you can feel the growth they went through in the previous movie because their connections are still strong. Joy, of course, is fantastic. I don't think I mentioned in the Pixar films ranked video, but Joy is still my favorite Inside Out character, and probably one of my favorite Pixar characters, besides Woody, of course. I'm glad Joy improved more, with more layers of emotions, including one I'll get to. Anger is still anger, but like Joy, he's got other emotions, not just being angry. Now, disgust and fear, I think they improved their characters more. In the first movie, they were likable, but they haven't much of their input. But in this one, they really did. Like, they developed them incredibly well. Speaking of development, let's talk about our girl, Riley. We all know Riley was important because of her controlling emotions. In fact, I feel like Riley is becoming a perfect blank slate character. And I know a lot of people look at blank slates as a negative thing, but I disagree. I think they can be done very well. they could be done very poorly, but at the same time, they're supposed to have very unique identities. There's supposed to be things that stand out about blank slate characters that make them unique, and I think Riley's similar. I wish I had to say more about Riley other than she's great of making her unique. Now let's say about the new characters. You have anxiety, envy, ennui, and embarrassment. Such great new additions in the movie. Envy is the more wishful one and helps what Riley wants and how to get it. While envy is the least out of the new characters, I like your character fine. She's the one that didn't have much of her input, but maybe the next movie they could improve envy more. Ennui is the boredom one that likes to control remotely with a mobile phone, which makes her a little interesting, but one day they could improve her. And embarrassment is pretty good. I like that one scene where he sees sadness and doesn't tell anxiety, but he helps her out. That is a nice moment. Plus, it's good that he speaks at the end of the movie, giving him a more of an identity. And anxiety is great. The main chart of the control panel, in which we all know anxiety is like taking over Riley's mind and giving Riley her life troubles. And I know this movie is so smart for not having anxiety as the villain, but more of an antagonist. Thankfully, anxiety calmed after controlling too much. I would like to see what they can do with anxiety in the next movie, like teaming up with joy or stopping the other new emotion. But yeah, the new emotions are great. Voice acting for the characters are great. While I am disappointed that Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling did not reprise their roles, the replacements, Tony Hale and Liza Lapera, were good choices. And the new voices for the new emotions were good too. I know a little bit of Ayo, Adele, and Paul, but not too much. Maya Hawke was a great choice voicing anxiety. Anyways, with those characters I said, another strong part about the movie, and that is the emotions forming strong connections with each other. Like how Fear told Anxiety, you and I are going to be friends. And that makes sense because they're very, very similar. And on the journey, I noticed that Fear almost looks like he has a crush on Anxiety or something. Sadness has a strong connection with embarrassment, in which it's a similar emotion. And like I said, I like that it doesn't feel out of nowhere for embarrassment helping sadness. Disgust has a romantic connection with this video game character, makes sense, because it's the secret she doesn't want to know about. Joy and anger, almost complete opposites. Both had to give in to their other side. I really like that Joy really breaks down and getting angry and having a freak out, and then anger helps her out. I really like seeing these emotions working off with each other, whether it's the exact opposite or that it's something that's very familiar. Either way, it's awesome. I like the new addition of sense of self room, something that wasn't there before, and I like the idea of a person's original sense of self being pushed to the back of the mind is very clever. I would say more about the climax or the message, but really, they did a great job. Speaking of great job, let's talk about one thing that this movie did over the first one, and that is the comedy. Don't get me wrong, the first movie was funny, but it wasn't hilarious, and it did good. This one made it even more hilarious. Like, there's two characters in Riley's Secret that is a heavy inspiration. Like, Bluefy is a 2D cartoon character that's heavily inspired by Dora the Explorer with his talking pouch. And Lance Slashblade is a video game character that's heavily inspired by Cloud from Final Fantasy. Like, this is pure genius, and again, really funny. That's how it cleverly works into the story, and it doesn't feel forced. Another funny moment is that her imagination is now working against her. That is so smart. I like the subtle commentary where these workers inside her mind working like animators, and for Disney, that has to be a very common thing. I really like that idea. But that's everything I really like about this movie. Are there any nitpicks? Yeah, but it's very minor. I know some people say it is repeating the first movie, but again, that didn't really bother me. There are some minor ones. Sometimes they spend just a little too much at the control panel. That's the one thing I was kind of getting a little restless, but that's fine. Another nitpick is the dialogue. It's not as tight as the first movie. Where in the first movie, it was very good at getting across these ideas in a very quick, efficient way. Still, the dialogue in the movie is good, but not amazing. And the biggest nitpick is the last second of the movie. Without giving away, it's mainly to know if Riley got the hockey team, but they could have kept it a little bit more vague if you ask me. Other than that, this movie is definitely one of the best from Pixar. Now let's get to the question that people are going to ask me. Which Inside Out movie do I like more? The first one or the second one? And my choice was pretty obvious which one I personally gravitate towards. It's easily the first movie. I still think that the first one has the resolution a lot better over the second movie. And when the first movie turns 10 years old in a few months, you'll be sure I will do a video on it. And since I already did a tier list of Pixar films ranked before, where would I rank Inside Out to? Well, definitely belongs in the amazing category, but I'm thinking about placing it after the first two Toy Story movies, which it is an interesting coincidence to place it. But yeah, Inside Out 2 was amazing. Let's see if Pixar can make a third movie. That is all for the video, and March is here, which means I already know what my next video is. Stay tuned, and I will see you all later.